Hey, 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 everyone. It's Kia, and this is Kia's Corner presents Author Spotlight. Tonight is very special as this is the last Author Spotlight of 2024. And I'm so excited because I get to speak with an author who has been one of my favorites since I read the very first book. And I'm talking about none other than Bailey West. So excited to have her on tonight. We are going to talk about all things books, and what that means. We're going to talk about her latest book, just got released this month, called 7 Days, 7 Nights. I can't wait to ask her about that. Also, we're going to talk about some of the series that she's known for. We're going to talk about the Metamorphosis series. We're going to talk about the Valentine Law series. And we're definitely going to talk about my favorite, the Bluette Men series. This is going to be a great conversation. We're going to dig in. We're going to dive deep. We're going to talk about all the things. And we're going to talk about Bailey West herself. We want to know her journey of becoming an author and what really drives her and motivates her to write these heartwarming stories, these stories that are so relevant, so relatable. There's some of the stories for me. I don't know about you guys, but for me, the stories that the author Bailey West writes, she really touches on things in such a way that the other authors just don't. Speaking from a position of spirituality, for example, I am a woman of faith, as I am many other things, but with God being my foundation, it is imperative for me to read a story and find God somewhere. And that's something that she does very well, masterfully well. And I can't wait to speak with her about it. So I'm so excited. I'm so glad to be able to speak with someone who has written things that have really touched me and done things for me in such a way. She's already gotten fans. A fan of hers reached out to me. Callie, girl, I don't know if you're seeing this, but I am going to tell Bailey West as soon as she comes on. I am going to tell her what you said. So how about this? Let's bring her on now. All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Let me try one more time. We're going to get Bailey West in here. See what happens. See what happens. Trying to get you in. All right. Let's welcome Bailey West on in here. I'm trying to get you in. I'm trying to get you in. Okay, okay. Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to try it again. Just hang tight. See. I am trying to welcome you in right now. I don't know what's happening. I'm pressing the button. Okay. There you are. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Bailey.
How are
I'm
you?
great. Now that you're here, how are
I'm
you?
doing really
That
well.
is
Thank you for having
awesome.
me.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here. We've
I'm so
got
excited to have this conversation.
Oh, absolutely. I look, you have been on my list since the minute I knew I wanted to do
Hmm.
this, you were on my list because I have to tell you honestly, and I've read the Metamorphosis series, I've read the Valentine Law series, I've
Oh,
read Loving
nice.
Man,
Nice,
all of
nice,
that.
nice.
It was the Blue Men series that
Uh-huh.
really, really did it for
Yeah,
me
that's
personally.
that's the first one. So, yep.
Oh my
Hmm.
gosh. So I was like, oh, I can't wait to ask her about this. I can't wait. Yes, I've already gotten fans of yours. A fan of yours named Callie. She reached out to me the other day. She was like, "Look, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it in time for this live. Please tell Bailey West that I love her and
Oh,
Awakening is my favorite book."
oh,
So I had to
good.
tell you that.
Good, good.
Yes, yes,
I love to hear it.
absolutely.
I love to hear it.
Yes. So before I ask all the questions I'm dying to ask, and I know the people who are watching want to ask, I want to start first by first saying just congratulations on all your success.
Thank you.
Just the
Thank you.
incredible work that you've done. I just want to thank you personally for that because you do write books that in some ways are very much life changing if you're someone who has read so many romance novels and you're looking for certain things that you don't find, and then you finally find somebody who writes in a way that you needed it. So thank you personally for being that type of author. I thank you very much.
Thank you for saying
Yes,
that. Thank you for saying that.
absolutely.
When
So
I
I have
first
to ask,
started, I was going to say, when I
yeah.
first started, that was one of my fears
Oh,
because my stories came to me in the way that they do, right? But I hadn't
hmm,
really seen that in the way that I kind of mash up the spirituality
yeah,
within the romance. And so
right.
I was really afraid that it wouldn't land with people.
Oh,
So when people say that it does, it really touches me because that's the struggle sometimes, because it's
yeah,
different than a lot of other things that you will read. So thank you for saying
yes.
that.
Oh, of course. So I'm glad you brought that up. What got you to even writing in that way? Because it is different. You don't
Yeah.
see it. So
Yeah.
what got you started with that?
So I'm a church kid, right? I grew up in church. My
Hmm,
daddy was a preacher.
hmm.
My brother is a minister. My aunt, my uncle, like it's a
Okay.
whole group of people, right? We grew up in church.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so that was what I knew, right? I didn't know
Yeah.
I was in church, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday, like we just
Hmm.
that was my life. But
Yeah.
even in that, my dad gave me, because I was raised by my dad, some leeway to
Yeah.
still be, a kid, right? So I was a
Yeah.
cheerleader and I played
Okay.
sports and things like that. But the core of who I am was a Jesus girl,
Yeah.
right? But as I became an adult, I started to kind of reconstruct or deconstruct, really,
Hmm.
a lot of the things that I've been taught growing up in church. And
Okay.
I realized that there's space to love God and live life at the same time. And
Yeah.
so then I wanted to write characters that were more reflective of where I am now as opposed to where I was, because a lot of the Christian novels that I read were very vanilla, and like I don't really
Yeah.
know personally anybody whose life is that
Right.
clean, right? Like we all have
Right.
stuff.
We all
And
got something.
so I wanted to write something that reflected who I was, because in my reading, I couldn't find me. I
Yeah.
couldn't find the people that I knew personally. And I love romance, and I love all types of
Right.
stories. I mean, you give me a good story and I'll devour it, but it
Yeah.
wasn't resonating with who I was. And so I put pen to paper and decided to write something that reflected what I knew to be reality.
Right. Wow. That actually that makes so much sense of why your stories resonate so well with me. Me myself, I am a church girl. I didn't grow up as a church girl, but I became a church girl.
Mm,
My husband's a minister. My husband's a PK. His brother's a minister. That whole
right.
thing. It's a family thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and so my life as an adult, I'll say, not growing up that way and becoming a Christian as an adult. So yeah, I've had some stuff in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Everything wasn't clean,
Mm-hmm.
but I love the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So it informed the way I select books to read.
Gotcha.
So I'm
Yeah.
looking for something, whereas before I was just reading whatever, if it was amusing, entertaining, whatever. But being a woman of faith, but still being real,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I still want to read a good love story. I still want all the things, but I want to see God in there too,
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
that's my reality,
Yeah.
like you were saying. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I've lived life now, but
Mm-hmm.
God is the foundation.
Right.
Christ is my
Absolutely.
center. So
Absolutely.
that's when I read your books, you know, because once I read the first one, I had to
Yeah.
keep going. I was just like, oh, this is it. I found somebody. Oh, yeah. So I'm reading and I'm like, this is what I know. These are people I know. I see myself in
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering for you, as you're crafting this story, were you thinking in the back of your mind, you know, that I want people to see themselves in the story, that there's a certain group of people that could read this and see themselves? Is that what you were kind of thinking about? Or
Nope.
you just
No, not at
okay,
all. No,
okay.
no. I just wanted to tell the story, and I wanted it to
Mm-hmm.
resonate with anyone at any point in the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just
Yeah,
wanted to tell these stories as authentically. They're fiction, right? I don't know any of these
right.
people in real life, but I wanted to tell the story as authentically as I could, but then reflect Christ at the same time. So sometimes for
Yeah.
me, if I'm being honest, my stories are more to get that person that would never step foot into a church to let them
Mm-hmm.
see God, even though they're being entertained. You know,
Yeah.
that's really the
Yes.
goal. So so
Yeah.
it blesses me when people say, "Girl, you made me open my Bible, Lord. You
Yeah.
made me
Yeah.
see church different," or you made, because
Yep.
that's really the goal, right? Those of us
Yes.
that are in church or they grew up in church, we we know this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's preaching to the choir for the most part. So no,
Right.
I'm not really looking for the people who are like me. I'm looking for the people that's different from me.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's good. That's
Mm-hmm.
really good.
Yeah.
That's actually a thought that I had throughout that series when I read it.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking to myself, I said, you know, this would be really good for somebody who was iffy about church or who was kind of on the outside looking in and weren't
Mm-hmm.
really sure they could do it and all that, to see that these are real people with
Yeah.
real lives, real feelings.
Yeah.
They have stuff going on.
Yeah.
Just because you love God doesn't mean that you don't have certain desires that
Oh,
you just,
absolutely.
it's not like you become a robot or an alien. It's like we're still people, we're still human, and
Uh-huh.
we still live that life. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I remember having that thought, like, wow. For example, if you take uh, Zora
Mm-hmm.
is a good example, the character of Zora.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to me, I thought the way you wrote her character was really for someone who was on the outside, thinking that they could never, oh, I could never be in
Yeah.
there. I can't
Yeah.
be a part of that. That's
Mm-hmm.
not me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just the way she was embraced, the way she was accepted, the way the parents embraced her and accepted her and loved her for who she was.
Right.
It allowed her actually to grow in her faith. It
Mm-hmm.
actually allowed her to do something she didn't think she could do.
Yeah.
And I think that was a lesson. There was a lesson in there. I think, even though I know you say you weren't speaking to the choir, and I get that wholeheartedly, but I feel like that was a lesson for us because sometimes we can be very judgmental.
Oh my goodness. Sometimes, all the time, right? All the time. Just
Yeah.
even in conversations with my friends, people
Hmm.
that I grew up with, we went to the
Yeah.
same church. Sometimes even personally, my conversation can get very
Oh
judgmental,
yeah.
and you
Yeah.
got to be very careful because you don't know where people are and what they're struggling with.
Right.
I can recall having full on meetings at church because one woman pants was tight,
Oh
or
wow. Yeah.
uh and the
Yeah.
men, the elders telling all the women, you gonna call somebody to sin, and maybe that's all she can afford to
Yeah.
wear to church,
Yeah.
but again, church people will be like, oh yeah, her pants too
Yeah.
tight, she,
Yeah.
girl, love that lady where she is, she don't
Right.
want your man, she got one,
That's
but
right.
it's the mindset,
It's a
so
mindset.
yes, people can be very judgmental, and it's something that we have to continually work on
Yeah.
with ourselves, because, and I realized it with me, even with writing Zora, because it almost seemed far-fetched sometimes that people would love
Yeah.
somebody, the people that loved her
Yes.
would love her, because you don't
Right.
really see it.
Hmm.
But it takes a conscious effort to be
Yeah.
like God, right? You know,
Yes.
to love God's people and love
Yes.
God. That's what we're supposed to be doing. So yeah.
Absolutely. But that's what, in my opinion, that's what it did. And not just her, but when I look at how you wrote the brothers,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
you have, they're all PKs, they all grew up that way. But then you have, of course, you got the one that follows in the footsteps, and then you got the one that did something totally different,
Mm-hmm.
but he's kind of there, and then you got the one that's wilding out a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
that's real. That
No,
really
it's absolutely
happens.
real.
It's
Mm-hmm.
real because I know. So it's like you have that, you're writing them exactly how they are. But even when, because church people, you're gonna say, oh, they strayed, they left, that sort of thing, that judgmental thing. But what I love about what you did with each of them is, even in those moments where someone may have said, oh, they strayed, they kind of turned their back, or they walked away, or they're straddling the fence, or whatever you want to call it, you still saw where God showed up in them. What was
Yes.
in them came out.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a key. That was a key moment in each book in that series.
Mm-hmm.
You did that with each one of them. They
Yeah.
all had something that you could point to and say, oh, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. They're not living the way they're supposed to be living. And even if they did stray, at some point in that story, you saw where God still showed up in their life,
Absolutely.
where they became a light to the people around them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so important
Mm-hmm.
because, I mean, to be honest, even with myself, sometimes you have a fear of, am I going to get this right? Am I going to, get off the path? And am I living wrong? Or,
Yeah.
people are going to be looking at me like I'm not doing the right thing. But if it's in you, it's in you.
If it's in you, it's
It's
in you. Yeah.
it's really going to be there, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to come out. Once those
Mm-hmm.
seeds are planted and watered, it's like being a parent. It's like you got to trust that what you put into that
Oh
child,
yeah, absolutely.
it's going to be there.
Yep.
They might
Exactly.
do some
Exactly.
things, but you're going to see it. So it was incredible for me to see that, because nobody's writing like that. They
Mm-hmm.
do not write that way. And I thought to myself, reading, I was like, wow, I noticed that it wasn't called Christian fiction, but
Mm-hmm.
I considered it Christian fiction,
A lot of
even
people
though it
do.
was, oh, it's a love story. Yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I was like, no, this is Christian fiction right here,
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it was that ever something that you thought about, the labeling of your work?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you had to grapple with?
Oh yeah, I still do sometimes.
Okay.
I've come to grips with it more now, but again, like I said, I when I first released Blues Beauty, I was such a novice. I didn't know what I was doing at all, and I did label
Okay.
it Christian fiction. Um, but some church people got a hold of that book, and I mean, they tore that
Oh,
story
oh
apart. You hear
no.
me? I mean, they
Oh
really
no.
because I guess they looked up Christian fiction and that came up, and they was like, preachers' kids don't say cuss words, and I think it was like at the beginning of the story or something where it was like it wasn't even a real curse word, right?
Right,
But
right.
people have an idea of what
Hmm.
Christianity is, and it's such a
Hmm.
false idea,
Yes.
so for me, I felt like if I label my stories Christian fiction, I would take myself out of a larger pool of people who I'm really trying to reach, because the people
Yeah.
that are the people that have been hurt by church, the people who
Hmm.
have turned away, the people who grew up in church and sick of church, sick of church
Yeah.
people, tired of the politics, tired of
Yeah.
the rules and regulations, they're not
Hmm.
going to pick up a book that's labeled Christian fiction. They're just not.
That's true.
But
That's
if I
true.
label it Black romance
Yeah.
and
They'll pick it
give
up.
them a storyline, then they'll find God.
They'll find
They'll
it.
find what they're looking for. So it's kind of
Yeah.
a trick.
I like that though. It works. It works for sure. It works. I'm I'm one of those people, because I totally get what you're saying. I'm one of those people where I stopped reading books that said Christian fiction,
Yeah.
because I was so tired of seeing these stories that just weren't, they didn't even seem real to
Right.
me. It's like, who's living like this? Who's speaking like this? Like, nobody's talking to people like this, or it's just just too cutesy and
It's so
good, and
false. Yeah, it's
it's
so
so
false.
it's
Yeah,
so
like
unrealistic,
yeah,
I
it's
just got tired of it. And I
mhm,
really just like left that genre altogether. I didn't even look for it anymore.
mhm.
Um, but I was still kind of hopeful. So it's one of those things like you stumble upon something, you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
I did not know that somebody was writing like this.
Yeah.
What? Yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
the
Uh,
excitement, of it. And I get what you mean about having to trick people, because you really do.
you do.
The people who aren't in the faith, or whatever, however they want to, classify themselves, if they are not comfortable with publicly stating, this is who I am, this is what I do, they're not looking for that. They're like, I ain't
Mhm.
trying to read nothing like that. I don't want that, or that's just not for me, or whatever. And then they read it and they're like, oh, this
Yeah.
is not what I thought.
Exactly.
This is not what I thought. So in my opinion, I'm gonna ask you if you agree with this. When I was reading this, I was like, this is like ministry for you.
It's
This is like a ministry for
it's
you.
ministry
Is that how you
for
see
me.
it?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're the first person that actually really pointed that out during the interview. But yeah, for me, it is ministry because I want to reflect positively on God throughout the story, even
Hmm.
if the characters are not necessarily Christian. Because I've
Right.
written stories where the characters aren't necessarily Christian, but you're gonna get Jesus, right? And I'm
Yes.
gonna give you
Yes.
full
Yep.
scripture,
Yes.
chapter,
Uh-huh.
verse,
Yep.
story, because I need to get that to you. And the great thing about books,
Hmm.
and I always say this, I think that when God gives me the idea for these stories, and I struggle with two main parts of writing my stories. I
Okay.
struggle with the sex scenes all the time,
Okay.
and I struggle with the messages, right? And not
Mm,
because I it's impossible to write, but because I want to put the right thing at the right time. And the
got it.
cool thing about books is that God can place a message in a story that I wrote back in 2016, and it's gonna land on somebody today in 2024.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
the
That's right.
wonderful thing about it. So it's
Yep.
there continually. I only have to say it once.
Yep.
I plant the seed and then God is going to water it. And so that's exciting
Absolutely.
for me when I see people. I was just talking to somebody that recently read the Valentine Law series, and I think I released my last book of the Valentine Law series in maybe 2019, I think, right before
Yeah.
COVID. And they were just so excited about the word in the
Yep.
book and all that. I'm
Yep.
like, girl, I was so like they were reminding me of things that happened in the story. I'm like, oh, that did happen. Oh, that was so good, because I've moved
Yeah.
on. Like those characters are not living in my brain necessarily now.
Right.
But it's still landing, and so that's a
It
blessing
is.
for me.
It
Mm-hmm.
is. And that's one of the things, when I knew that I wanted to speak with you, I didn't have this strategy. Like some people, they build their brand and they have this thing where they say, well, if I'm going to talk to an author, I have to talk to this person about the latest thing that they just wrote. I don't want to talk about anything old. I want to keep it fresh. For me, it was like, no, I want to talk about the thing, whether this the first book they wrote or whatever. What's the thing that can land, that could change people's lives
Mm-hmm.
that they may not know about?
Mm-hmm.
What can I introduce some new people to? And
Mm-hmm.
so why I wanted to talk about that, of course, it's my favorite, so I wanted to ask because of that. But
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that if we talked about this and some people came on, there'll be some people listening that probably didn't know that that's what it was. It's like, okay, there's something for you in there. If you were
Mm-hmm.
looking for that, you can go get that. Go read it. You will
Mm-hmm.
thoroughly enjoy it. So I wanted to be intentional about that. Not because you do it in all the books you write, that's what you do. Because I,
Yeah.
I read your work. That's what you do. I
Yeah.
think for me, what was so particularly special about the Blue at Men series were, for one, you focused on the men, the brothers. You
Mm-hmm.
had
Mm-hmm.
these were male centered in a way that
Mm-hmm.
I had not seen before. You're
Mm-hmm.
getting a man's feelings, you're getting his thoughts about him falling in love and being vulnerable and telling his story, which is something, especially in our community, that we miss,
Yeah, we missed that
is
a lot. Mm-hmm.
hearing a man's voice, hearing his
Mm-hmm.
perspective on love, like not
Mm-hmm.
just going through different women, but I love this woman. I want to commit to this one woman,
Mm-hmm.
and the spiritual spiritual journey that these men are going through, their
Mm-hmm.
real backstories. I thought that was so special.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to, and my question about that is for you to use the men, their that male perspective, for you to begin with that. Was that just intentional, or is that just your creative mind? You just told the story that was in you to tell.
I think I just told the story that was in me to tell because I think honestly for no, yeah, I mean Blue Roman was my first character that talked to me,
Okay.
and I figured him out because I was watching YouTube videos way back.
Mm-hmm.
And before the commercials and all that stuff, you could really go down rabbit holes with
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah.
And I saw a video of Marvin Sapp
Mm-hmm.
at his wife's funeral. Um,
Okay.
and then I found another video of a pastor whose wife had also passed from cancer. And like a year later, he still had on his wedding ring. And
Okay.
so I started wondering, like, what
Mm-hmm.
happens next?
Yeah.
What is the story after that? And
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to create something that could show the story of grief, but also
Yeah.
redemption at the end, because those men still have to get up and preach and be strong for
Yes.
everybody else while they're still grieving, the love
Yes.
of their life and things like that. And so I
Right.
guess because he spoke to me first was the reason
Okay.
why the series was so male centered.
Mm-hmm.
But and I knew that once I started writing him, I needed to include his brothers because when I first developed him, he didn't have siblings. Writers
Okay.
go we go through this whole thing.
Okay.
He didn't have siblings and all of
Okay.
that stuff, and so I went back and actually included the siblings and everything to really
Okay.
be able to fully tell the complete story of the family and how things really came to be. So
Yeah.
I think that's why because he was the one that spoke to me first.
Oh, wow,
Hmm.
that's incredible. That
Yeah.
is so interesting to know that you didn't even have him with siblings at
No.
first. It was just going to be about him.
It was just him.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it was just him.
Wow.
Yeah. And eventually he got one brother and then he got two brothers and like it just evolved and it's so the good
Yeah.
thing about the Bluettes and probably is why it lands so well with people too is because I was still very naive and fresh to
Okay.
writing and I didn't have readers' voices in my ears. I didn't
Oh.
have the 1-star reviews. I didn't
Oh,
have the
okay.
critiques of this and
Yeah.
that. So all of that stuff starts to land on you after a while. And
Got
you're not
you.
so naive and you're not so, fresh to it anymore. You
Okay.
start learning the nuances of how to move and how to get things done. But
Okay.
yeah, that's what people say is that the Bluettes really do land with them well. So
Wow.
mm-hmm.
Okay. And that is great for you to mention that having other people's voices in your head is
Oh my
seeing the
goodness.
reviews,
Mm-hmm.
and I know we don't, as the reader, we tend to not think about that, but I'm sure that that has to be difficult when you go from just, this is
Ooh.
something I want to do, to something I'm passionate about, and then you start reading what people have to say
Oh my
about your
goodness.
work. Do you
Yes.
find yourself having to take time away from reading reviews, take a break, or how do you even deal with that?
I've made a pact with myself and made the conscious choice that reviews are for readers and not for the author.
Oh,
Right?
that's good.
It's not my business. you know,
That's good. I
uh,
like that.
like your parents tell you, stay out grown folks' business. I stay
Yeah,
out of readers' business. I'm
got it.
not in like reader groups a lot and things like
Okay.
that because those conversations are not for me.
Yeah.
And the reason why they're not for me is because we're in two different places. Like I know that people that aren't creatives don't
Mm-hmm.
realize how much creatives live in our heads
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
will ruminate over things that are said or done. And
Mm-hmm.
when we hear those things, they don't go away. Like you have to force those voices away, right? You have to force the negative. And it can be a million people that
Yeah.
say, Bailey, you the best. That's the best story I've read. I'll read it forever. And it could just
Mm-hmm.
take one person to say, oh, this is the worst thing I ever read. Why would she do that? Why would she call him that?
Wow.
Why would she? And then
Yeah.
it just settles, And so then
Mm-hmm.
when you sitting down and you're typing, that voice comes back. Remember
Yeah.
she said that story was too long, or remember she said that story was too short, or
Right.
I had somebody more recently that wrote a review because it's still a struggle not to go in there sometimes. And she
Okay.
said, like, why would you name your character? I forgot what her name was. I don't know what it was. Why
Oh
would
my
you name her
God.
that? That's my mama's friend name. Well, I
What?
don't. I because that's her name, But then I started thinking, okay, so should I not name my character Lorraine now? Because your grandmama named Lorraine, like that stuff settles.
Yeah.
And even with the best of intentions,
Yeah.
sometimes people who are not creatives they just don't realize how heavy and what's the word I'm looking for? Like we're empaths. Like we
Oh
feel
yeah.
those things, and they
Yes.
settle on us. And the reason why a lot of us are empaths and the reason why our stories land so well is because we can feel the characters.
Right.
Right. But I can feel your reviews as well. I can feel the negative energy. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it lands wrong. So I'll go
Yeah.
through my books when I put them on Amazon and just see that I got some reviews. If I know the
Mm-hmm.
person, I may read it. But if I don't know it, or if I see some 2 stars, 1 stars, I'm like, that's
Yeah.
y'all business. Tell your friends about it.
Right.
Spread the story. So that's
Yeah.
how I live with that.
No, I like that. You're protecting your peace. You're protecting your sanity. You're
Mm-hmm.
protecting your heart.
Yeah.
Um, because to be a great writer, those characters do live with you. They sit with you for a
They
while.
do.
They're talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need any other voice
No,
in there
no, I do
because
not.
you're a vessel.
Yes.
So that's you got to keep that space clear.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that. But that also leads me to asking, when you were writing, because of the way that you write and because it's spiritually centric, were there any other outside voices as far as, you telling somebody, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I've just released, and for example, the church community that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like talking about, I can't believe you wrote this. I can't believe you talking like this in this book. Are you really saved? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have to deal with that as well?
I still deal with that,
Okay.
right? And even if it's not coming from people, it's inside of me, right?
Okay.
Like sometimes it's a struggle to to write the characters because I know that growing up in church, people have an idea who they think I am or where they want me to stay, and that's
Okay.
just not who
Hmm.
I am,
Yeah.
and the characters are never me, they're the characters, but then they be like, oh, I can't believe you wrote that, or I can't believe you said
Yeah.
that, or
Right.
so sometimes it's a struggle within myself to even get it done. But I
Hmm.
think that's any creative person will say that they have those types of tussles in their mind, or with the
Right.
craft that they have. Yeah, but like I said, when I first released Blues Beauty, one of the reasons why I don't go, so my pen name is Bailey West.
Right.
And I actually just dropped my first name. So Bailey is my maiden name and West is my married name.
Okay.
Um, and the reason why I did that is because I wasn't gonna tell anybody that I was writing. Right, it was going to be a
Wow.
secret because
Okay.
I did not want the blowback.
Got it.
I'm Elder Bailey's daughter. I
Yeah.
do praise and worship. I sing in the choir. Sometimes I
Yeah.
might preach. Sometimes I might exhort. I might pray for you. Might speak in tongues. Might
Right.
prophesy. Might, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like you
Yep.
just don't know. And
Right.
so it was scary, and so even
Yeah.
now still there are things that I may struggle with as I tell these stories, and I just have to push through it. But yeah, them church people will get you, because
Yeah.
they are super
That's a tough
judgmental.
crowd.
So
That's a
yeah,
tough
they are super
crowd.
judgmental. Yeah.
It's a tough crowd. Well,
Hmm.
I just thinking about the stories that you're telling, and we're not going to even dwell on the negative parts. We just want to focus on the good part. So, one thing that you focused on the first book, you talked about grief in a very raw way, where
Hmm.
how Roman struggled to get past the death of his wife
Hmm.
and went into like this deep dark hole.
Hmm.
Um, and the way you described it, it wasn't cookie cutter, it wasn't cute. It was like, no, this got ugly. This
Hmm.
got dark. Like
Hmm.
they didn't know if he was gonna come out of this.
Right. Right.
Um, and I wondered, as you're writing this, because some authors will say, you know, I had an experience and I was able to pull from that. And for some others, it's like, no, I just let the character speak to me and I go wherever they go. So was it one of those things where you were able to pull from somewhere real to do that? Because that, as a person who has experienced grief, I felt those
Mm-hmm.
words. That was real.
Mm-hmm. So in 2014, about a year before I started working on Blues Beauty, I lost my very best friend to cancer.
Oh, wow. So sorry.
And I we walked the cancer walk together. She
Hmm.
made choices that I didn't agree with. You know, I was mad at her. She didn't want to get the treatments and things like that. And ultimately,
Hmm.
she passed away. And then after my best friend died, I lost my nephew, who it
Mm.
was actually I was born an aunt, and
Wow.
he passed away suddenly. And so, and just in my life, I lost my dad, I lost my mother, and so
Mm.
I walk with grief, right? Grief is
Okay.
a very present part of my life. But
Yeah.
when I first had the idea to write a story, I thought that it was going to be a story more about growing up in church and being a church girl. And I wrote a couple of paragraphs and I sent it to my friend. Her name
Yeah.
is Diara, who passed away. And she was an English professor. And so I sent it to her. And I was like, what do you
Okay.
think? Tell me
Yeah.
what your ideas are. And so she marked it all up for me and, you know, told me what I should do and shouldn't do. And
Yeah.
so I learned a snippet from her before she passed away. So when I talk about the cancer and things like that, it was still very much present in my life because I was very much so grieving all
Okay.
of the loss that I experienced. Michaela is actually named after my nephew who passed away. It was Michael.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I named her Michaela in honor of him. And
Mm.
then in the second story, in Ezekiel's Passion, that the paragraph, there's like a section in there, and my brain is a little foggy now, but I know that what I sent to Diara, that she red marked is actually in that story, right? So I used
Oh,
those same
wow.
words and put that in the story.
Okay.
So yeah, I was dealing with a lot of grief and I had just moved. I had moved from Missouri to New York City, which was like
Oh,
moving from
wow.
one country to another.
It is.
So
Yeah.
I was experiencing a whole lot of those emotions.
Wow.
And so it was easy to get that grief on paper because I was
Okay.
experiencing it a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
sorry for your loss. Sorry about that. I understand where you're coming from. For me, I lost two
Oh,
sons. And
wow.
so for me, reading, and I lost my nephew, rereading your books at the time that I read them, um, that was really, it really helped me
Mm,
because what I often tell people is that when it comes to grief, we don't know what to do with it. People don't
no.
know how to, they don't know how to respond to it. They don't really know what to say to
Mm,
you. They
mm,
don't know what to do with
mm,
you.
mm.
Um, so when you're reading something and someone is able to put to words the things that you go through, the dark days, the hard times, what it really feels like, um, in a way that's sometimes hard to express to other people. That's what was so helpful to me because it's like somebody gets it.
Yeah.
Somebody gets it.
Yeah.
That it doesn't matter how. In Roman's case, you know, if you're a minister, if even if you're not a minister, but if you're someone who most people know to be strong, to be an encourager, when you go into a dark place, it's almost like you feel that weight even more
Mm-hmm.
because you feel like you're letting people down by
Mm-hmm.
being in that place. And it's normal to
Mm-hmm.
grieve and to go through things, but you feel guilty because you're like, I'm letting people down. I'm not being who I'm supposed to be
Right.
right now. I need to
Right.
hurry up and get back up,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah.
it was so good to read that, and just, you know, I'm sure it was probably healing for you as
Mm-hmm.
well to be able to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, write
Mm-hmm.
through that
Mm-hmm.
process.
Mm-hmm.
But again, just to switch gears, when you get to this character, um, Paxton, I had to ask you
Mm-hmm.
about Paxton
Okay.
because now I love Ezekiel and Zora. I love them. I love Zeke and Zora. But Paxton, just the type of character he was, the, I guess you call it strong silent type. I don't know, but he was one of those like, he just surprised me. I think
Mm-hmm.
his story with Olivia was so different. I loved it. It was
Mm-hmm.
intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So many layers with that story. It's like you
Mm-hmm.
got two people who, on the surface, you think they're one way, but they've got so much
Yeah.
underneath. There's so much going on there.
Mm-hmm.
How did you even come up with that? Because these, like I said, these are two people. I'm reading this story and I'm like, wow, like nobody is writing people like
Mm-hmm.
this. Where is this
Mm-hmm.
coming from?
Mm-hmm. I have no idea. I don't know. You know what? I was, because people started telling me. First of all, people with Blues Beauty, people asked me if Paxton was gay, right? And I was like, where would they even come up with
I
that?
don't
But
know
I
where that
think
came from.
because, yeah, I think because a lot of women are not used to men in positive male relationships. And he followed his brother, right?
He did.
Wherever
Yeah.
Blue went, Paxton was there.
Right.
And he was making sure that he was taken care of. And I knew in my mind that he was the protector. I
Yeah.
knew that, but when I first wrote him, I didn't know how that would land. But then people's ideas of who they thought he was really
Yeah.
made me go deep with who he really was. Because I remember somebody's like, oh, Paxton's just a quiet teddy bear. And I'm like, Paxton is a murderer, right?
He
Like
is not a teddy
people,
bear.
yeah, no, not at all. Unless it's a teddy bear with
No.
a rifle that'll blow your head off. Like
Right.
he was not a teddy bear. And so I
No.
think that those again, readers, it really made me dig into who he was, the backstory with his parents,
Yeah.
his military time, and then Olivia's story to give them some depth and some character to really be able to close that whole story out. So I
Yes.
loved writing Paxton, right? I mean, because
That
I
was
didn't
something.
have any guardrails with him.
Yeah.
I could make him do whatever I
Yeah.
wanted him to do. So that was really fun.
Yeah. Oh, Taisha, this is somebody said nothing about Paxton is demure.
At
That's true.
all. Right. But when they was reading
That's
them other
true.
stuff, like, oh, first he gay, then he wasn't gay, so he just a quiet teddy bear. And I'm like, girl,
You
wait
have
till
no
you read
idea.
his story. He is not
Listen,
nowhere near nothing like a
wow.
teddy bear. So yeah, I
Paxton
think that
was a
that's what really did.
killer.
Yeah, he was
Paxton
a
was
literal
a killer.
murderer. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
It
He'll
was just
take your
like
life.
to read a story about a person who, first of all, is a killer and will kill you and not blink.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I mean, loves his family. Like you said, he was right there with Roman, um, a an armor bearer.
Yeah.
I love that you included that he
Mm-hmm.
was an armor bearer, because I'm reading, because I'm a nerd and I'm a church person. I'm reading, I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, I've never seen anybody say that in a book before. Like, you are
Right.
teaching the people.
Uh-huh.
Yes, he's an armor bearer.
Yeah,
And I
he's an
love
armor
that
bearer.
because
Mm-hmm.
you were able to slide it in there in a way where it made sense. And it's like Olivia's like, what is that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing? And
Mm-hmm.
he's able to explain it, and then you see just this development, her spiritual development in
Mm-hmm.
her relationship with him, multi-layered, because you're like, okay, he's a killer for sure, but what's in you is what's in you. This is how he
Mm-hmm.
grew up. He loves his brother, and so you see how that love manifested itself. And I just, I have to I'm gonna ask the question, but I gotta get it out. So, okay, what I love so much, I have to get it, because if I don't say this, I'll forget. So, in this story with Paxton, you did something that I would think, for me, I'd probably be scared to do it. But you included the fact that they lived together and how he went to his brother and was like, okay, I'm gonna have to step down
Mm-hmm.
because this is how I'm living and this is how I'm gonna live.
Mm-hmm.
But because I respect you, I'm going to step away from it.
Yeah.
That moment right there was like, okay, whatever awards they give authors, can we just give it to him, please? Because we don't ever see that. And
Mm-mm.
that really happens. Those are the kinds of things that really happen in the church world,
Yeah.
where you have somebody they're choosing to live their life, their truth a certain way. And they're in the church, they work in ministry to some degree, and there comes a point where they're kind of like, okay, well, I probably should step down because this is what I'm gonna do. And I love that you did not do the thing where, you know, he's like, okay, I gotta stop doing this, or you didn't put a cute little bow on it. He's like, no, I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna step down. How did you even? I just want to know how did you come? How did you do that? Why? What made you say I gotta
I
write it like that?
don't know. These characters, sometimes they just talk to you. I was
Okay.
surprised at that too when I wrote it, but sometimes they just tell you the story and you have to relay it that way. And I think that it
Mm-hmm.
really goes back to, again, the level of judgment that we have for people who
Yeah.
are just trying to live their lives. Like, he loved God, but he loved
Yes.
Olivia, right? And
Yeah.
she was in danger at one point, and he didn't want her to go back to that little house. Her car was
Right.
raggedy, you know, and he
She was in
could
the
give her
hood.
something.
Yeah.
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 And he could give her something that she couldn't give herself. So he's like, I'm gonna take care of this, because obviously this is my ministry now, you know.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
and I love the way that Blue reminded him, like, you ain't heard nothing I done preached about all these years. Like, you don't have to
Yeah.
be perfect. But for him,
Yeah.
with monitoring and being a protector of his brother and his family, he held himself to a higher standard than anybody else did, you know. So
Yes.
he says to
Yes.
stop all these church people from talking. When they see us pop up in here together and go home together, I'm
Right.
just gonna go
Right.
ahead and sit down, you know.
Right.
But then his brother stepped in to be his protector. Was like, that's not their business, you
Right.
know. What we do back
Yep.
here is what we do back here, and what they do is what they do. And that's the thing. A lot of times people don't understand all of the nuances that go into really just trying to do what you're supposed to do. You know, like, it get
Yeah.
hard and you have to make choices, you know,
That's right.
in
Yep.
leadership. And so I appreciated him telling his brother, you know, you need to stay.
Yes.
But then it was time for them to start training other people and things like that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I love that part too.
Wow. That I'm saying it was like one of those moments where you like, this is really happening right now. This is,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that Roman, the way it's written, the way Roman is like, hold up, I never told you you needed to step down. I don't have a problem with you. It's
Mm-hmm.
not their business. You're here to do what you're here to do. I know who you are. We don't answer to the people.
Right.
Period. You know, he
Yeah.
stood on that.
Yeah.
And I think that moment is so important for readers to read it that way,
Mm-hmm.
because that love, that grace, that acceptance, you know, like, I'm really gonna love you the way Christ loves, for real,
Yes,
you know,
absolutely. For real. Right.
like
Not
really
just say it, but I'm gonna
love
actually
you.
put it into action. Yeah.
Yeah, that real love that he showed. When there are many times I've seen it, I'm sure you've seen it, where there are people in leadership who don't respond that way. They don't.
Oh, I've never
They
seen. I mean, I just sat under some pastors. They didn't respond that way when I knew. You know,
no, they
they don't.
don't.
No, they don't. So
No,
yeah.
that's why I thought it was huge, it was monumental, and it was important, because there are so many people that I know personally that experience church hurt from things just like this,
Oh, absolutely.
and they end up leaving the church for things like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
they
Yeah. And
do,
they don't go back.
and they don't come
They
back.
don't go back. Yeah.
They
No.
don't come back. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought that was one of those monumental moments. That was those game changer moments. That's one of those moments where it's like, oh, she gonna get somebody with this one. She's gonna get somebody in. She pulling some. I don't know if that was a trick, but she getting them with this. That's how I was reading it. I was like, oh, she really just evangelizing in this book. Okay, you was
Yeah.
getting them. I loved it. But again, it's, with all of the brothers, you saw the relationship, you saw the love, the acceptance. Like, I love you just as you are.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some stuff that comes with you, and that's okay.
Right.
I still love you. And
Yeah.
so that, I felt, it was so important to see it, and
Mm-hmm.
to not look, it didn't come off fake either.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, these people really love each other for real.
Yeah.
Like, they really have each other's back in a
Mm-hmm.
real way. When you see a Zora, because I gotta bring up Zora, when you see somebody like a character like that coming in, and she's unapologetic, she's like, this is me. Take it or leave it.
Mm-hmm,
I'm gonna say what
mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say. I'm gonna live how I live. This is it. But they embraced her.
Yeah.
They loved her. They welcomed her into the family. And again, it's not one of those things that you typically see.
No.
A lot of times you see the opposite. It's like, get this
Absolutely.
girl away.
Yes.
What's she doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you pick this girl out of all the church girls you could have had? You got her. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Is she a mama too? Like, what? You got a
Mm-hmm.
ready-made family?
Right.
Like, what are you doing? So for you, coming from the church, like myself, to write a story like that, where he's picking somebody that a lot of the church mothers probably would have been like, no, that ain't the one. Like, did you feel any kind of like, am I doing the right thing by writing him with somebody spicy?
No,
Like,
because he was spicy and he
oh, he
needed somebody that would match
was.
him. Yeah,
He was.
he wouldn't have survived with one of those girls from those Christian novels that we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
wouldn't She wouldn't have made it in his world. And so he needed somebody that could go toe to toe with him, that
Mm-hmm.
understood uh all sides of him, right? Because Zora's
Right.
daddy was a preacher too,
Right.
so she knew church. She just was sick
Yeah.
of it,
Yeah.
But he needed somebody like that that could allow him the space to be who he needed to be and not be boxed in
Right.
by other people's opinion of what he should be. So no, I didn't have any
Right.
reservation. I loved writing her too, because she Zanetta was hard to write because Zanetta was very pure in heart,
She
right?
was.
She was not going to make those choices because
Right.
she had a path and she was going to do
That's
it.
right.
And
Yeah.
she was demure,
She
she
was. She
but
was.
then I got to write Zora and I just got to throw all of that out the window,
Yeah.
because Zora, she do whatever she wanted
That's
to do. And so,
right.
you just had both of those sides of the coin, where you have people who, are unapologetic, and then some that hold back, and not necessarily hold back, but just are more
Yeah.
subdued and
Yeah.
reserved, So yeah, no,
Yeah.
I had no problems writing Zora, and I couldn't wait to tell her story.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it more fun to write characters like that are
Oh
just
man,
you
way
would
more fun. Way more fun. I just, in my story, Nuri, that I released in October,
yeah.
I was able to just let her just cuss people out all day long,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed every second of it. She was punching people in the face, cussing
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
out, calling babies ugly, it
Right.
just, yeah, that's so much more fun, but everybody can't be that way. So when I get the opportunity to do that, I
Yeah.
look forward to it.
Yeah, yeah, that was amazing,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. So yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, because I was thinking, I was like, this has to be fun
Yeah.
to write it like
It's
this.
so much
It has to
fun,
be fun.
yes.
It's
Hmm.
freedom.
Especially when it's not you either. Like people say I have a sharp tongue,
Okay,
but I think through things before I say them for the most part.
okay, all right.
But some people might say that I don't, but I do.
Yeah.
It still just may come off a little harsh, but so I don't get to do all of the cussing people out and fighting and all.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's not me. So
Okay.
to write it is always fun. So yes, I look forward
Yeah.
to it.
It feels fun. It's like,
Yeah.
ooh, she just doing anything, everything. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
I would
exactly.
never do it, but I love
Yes.
reading it.
Right. I'll watch it. Right, but
I'll
I can't
watch.
do it. Yeah.
I'll watch. Yes. So, okay. I read the Valentine Law series. That was another one of my favorites. Another one of my favorites. The question I have to ask is, when you're writing, and it doesn't just have to be about lawyers, but when you are writing about characters whose professions are not your own,
Mm-hmm.
does that make the writing process more difficult for you, or is it just more freeing for you to explore? What's that like?
I had a colleague who had gone to law school.
Okay.
He had taken the bar exam like several times and hadn't passed yet, but it's a hard exam. But anyway, I used him a lot for my law questions.
Okay.
So no, it wasn't hard at all. And I try
Okay.
to stay away from the real, like, critical parts of the
Yeah.
story, or what they do. If you notice, like with the court scenes, it wasn't a whole
Yes.
lot of court words and stuff like that. So you
Right.
get the
I
gist of
noticed
what they
that.
do without me needing to dig into what they do
Got it.
so much. But when I was writing about my chocolatier in Loving Man, that was a lot of research. Like I watched a lot of videos, a lot of cooking
Okay.
shows, a lot of to really research to figure out how to get that shelf in that chocolatier to really be together
Okay.
and do what they needed to do. So yeah, sometimes it takes a lot of
Oh,
research.
okay. All
Mm-hmm.
right. No, that's because I asked because when, like I said, I've read Loving Man. I've read so many of these books. So I'm reading. I'm like, wow. Like, how much work does that take to be able to get into the mind, that professional mind, to know what to
Mm-hmm.
say, how to say it,
Yeah,
what they're feeling, what they're going through. It just seemed like it would be a tedious
yeah.
process, but
Sometimes
it
it
comes
is.
off. Okay, I was like, I mean, you do it. It seems like it's so easy. Reading is like, wow, this was seamless,
Yeah.
but this had to take work. But
Mm-hmm.
that, yeah,
Sometimes it does. Yeah. Sometimes
yeah,
I just phone a friend. So
yeah.
yeah.
Now I have to. I gotta ask you. I gotta ask about this new one. This new
Okay.
one, 7 days, 7 nights. I gotta ask you about this. So just released this
Mm-hmm.
this month. 7 days, 7 days. Kwanzaa principles. I've never seen a book that does that. That
Right.
actually incorporates the principles of Kwanzaa that in that way, in
Mm-hmm.
depth like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and marry it with that romance that it's just so intertwined, that love, yummy love story. What made you think to do Kwanzaa?
So I celebrate Kwanzaa, right?
Okay.
Yep. Habari Ghani. Today
All right. Yes.
today
All
is
right.
I think we're on day 4
Day four.
now. But
Yep.
I've been celebrating Kwanzaa with my family. I have a husband and 4 adults. And we've been celebrating Kwanzaa, I think they said, for about 17 years now.
Okay.
And so what we decided to do was make Kwanzaa our own unique celebration while using the things that um, learning about the holiday and
Hmm.
incorporating the principles of things, but we kind of made it uniquely ours, which was kind of
Okay.
what you're encouraged to do.
Right.
But since I celebrate it and I'm familiar with it, I thought, why not
Yeah.
write a story about it? Because
Yeah.
it didn't take a lot of research, because what we actually do as a family is each day we have activities that relate to
Hmm.
the principles of Kwanzaa. So like
Right.
yesterday we did an escape room to talk about
Mm.
uh not co- uh not cooperative economics, but it was collective work and responsibility. And so we
Oh,
did an escape
good.
room together to escape the room
Yeah.
together, and today we'll have a celebration as well once we're finished here. So yeah, it's what I do. And so I thought that it would
Yeah.
be cute to incorporate the
Yeah.
romance with it and kind of give people an idea of what Kwanzaa really, because there's so many, like, we don't talk about it a lot. It's
Right.
not a holiday, it's a new holiday, right? It was invented in the
Right.
1960s. And
Right.
so as a culture, we haven't really taken hold to it, because we still are
Hmm.
very much so celebrating Christmas, which is good.
Right.
But Kwanzaa doesn't replace Christmas. It just gives you an added layer of a celebration of our heritage and
Hmm.
our history and our legacy
Yeah.
and things like that. So I enjoyed writing it. Those dates were fun. The characters were fun.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because honestly, after I released the Nuri, I told all of my writer friends, everybody that would
Yeah.
listen, that I took my brain out and put it on a charger because I was
Okay.
tired, right?
Okay.
I had released the Nuri, I did Sweet Reasons, I did
Hmm.
Awakening. Was it
Yep.
Awakening? Yeah,
Yep.
Transformation. I did so many things. I helped my aunt release
Right.
books. And so I was tired, and I was like, I'm
Okay.
not gonna do anything. And so for about a month, maybe, I sat around piddling around. Like, this is boring. Like, I gotta find something else to do. So I wrote that story probably in a total of about 14 days. Like, I just
Whoa.
sat and just started typing the story up, and it kind of came pretty easy. I got stuck a little bit towards the end. It started feeling a little mundane.
Okay.
But once I worked my way through that, I was able to get through it, and then I was
Yeah.
able to incorporate the message by Abigail, because we haven't heard her preach yet, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, so that was fun. It was a fun story to write.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You get great reviews on this. This is
Yeah.
People are loving this new story, and it's so unique, and just the way you tell the story. You know, when I do interviews, I don't like to do spoilers because I don't think that's fair because I'm trying to get people to go read it. I don't want to say too much, but you just do a great job of the way you tell a story, the way you get us, you pull us into it. It just is. Y'all got to go get this book. If you haven't gotten it, you need to go get it. You got to go get it because you're not going to read another story like this. This is different. This is different. I love that. I love that it was Kwanzaa. First of all, when I saw it, the first time I saw it, I was like, what? Like, this is a story with Kwanzaa in it? Oh, yeah. No brainer. Got to read it. So, yeah. So you got people chiming in the chat. I still wonder, did Reggie and Samuel's mom get together? That's Taisha.
Now, who is Reggie, though? I don't remember Reggie.
I'm trying to remember who Reggie is too. Taisha, remind us who is Reggie, because I don't remember Reggie.
Because then maybe I could tell you in my mind if they got together or not, because I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember either. I'm like, wait a minute, who's Reggie?
Reggie?
Who is Reggie? Chime in, because we don't remember who that is.
Yeah, I purge those characters from my brain sometimes.
I'm sorry.
But I probably can say that to answer that question that I believe that in my mind she would end up with Samuel's dad. Reggie. But
okay.
Yeah, because his last name was Elsa. Yes, yeah, they do. Yeah, they did. So you can rest your mind on that. They did end up together.
Yeah, because I was stuck. Together. I was really trying to think, like, who is that? Like,
I remember his dad. Yes.
Okay.
That's his daddy. Yes. She loved him. He was tripping a little bit, and then he got caught up. She married his friend or whatever, but yes, they get together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. You got me thinking on that one. I was like, wait a minute now. I know I read a lot, but who's that? Like, but yeah, it's great. She said I just reread book 2 of the series today. That's what Taisha said.
Yeah, well then you probably know way more about it at this point than
you got it fresh on your mind. Yeah, she got it fresh on the mind,
which is cool. I love it.
Yeah. But her and yes, your books have a reread quality. They just do. Like you will want to go back, because I know I did. Each book I read it at least twice.
Wow.
Because I actually going back, because after I'm done, I'm like, it sits with me, and I'm always the person when I read something, I'm always asking myself, what did I learn? What did I learn from this? What did it teach me about me? And so then I'm like, hold on, let me go back and read it again just to make sure I didn't miss something. And so then I go back, and so every time with every book, I would go back and read it again. So it does have that reread factor that all books do not. Everybody doesn't write books like that. Wow. They just don't. But that's a testament to your gift and what you do.
So much. That's such a compliment. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Everybody doesn't, and I'm a voracious reader. I read everything. And I'm telling you, no, everybody doesn't write books where you can read it. It's like, oh, that was really good, and then you're done. You put it on the shelf, or you swipe and you're done. But when you have books that can speak to the different layers of who you are as a person, it makes you want to go back and read again, because you're like, wait a minute, there might be something else that I missed. Let me go back.
That's nice.
So that's
so
something that you have.
Because it takes months sometimes for me to get these stories done. Like, I mean, 7 days. 7 days was anomaly, because typically it takes me a minute to get through stories, and so it could take months, and then I'll release it, and 3 hours later somebody be like, done. I'm like, it took me like 3 months to get through that story. You done read it in 3 hours,
Yes.
So to hear that people rereading it is really nice, because sometimes I would pour over a story, but I love it. I love to hear that, and it's such a compliment, because like I said, as a creative, I live in my head, and I'm wondering, is this gonna land? People gonna understand this, and so I love that. I love to hear that. So thank you.
That's great. Yeah, not more people chiming in, saying the same thing in the chat. So yeah.
Now I
Oh,
don't mind y'all read. So read as fast as you want, right? Read as fast. But my little heart, I'm like, oh my God, y'all done already? Like I just knew this was gonna take you at least a day.
right.
So,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I love
I'm
it
one of
though.
those.
I love that people read. Like it was never my goal to be a successful author, right? It
Okay.
wasn't a dream of mine. It was just something that was placed on my heart to do. And so I'm always excited when it lands because I know that
Okay.
that's God. That's God, and I take the credit
Yes.
for being led,
Yeah.
but ultimately, it's all him. And so I always point back to anytime you read my thank yous, I'm gonna thank God. And
Yeah.
I give every project back to him. This is
Hmm.
I wrote this, but I give this all back to you because it's so important to recognize that he is why we are. He is so
Yes.
we are. And so I try to do
Yes.
that. But yeah, I love that people read. I love that people comment, leave reviews. I love that they contact me and tell me what they thought and ask questions. Like all of that is
Yeah.
really meaningful to me.
Oh, great. That's great because that was going to be my next question. One of the things I love to ask when I close an interview is I like to let all authors know I love to show support for Black authors, Black and brown authors especially. That's why I choose to interview only Black authors, because as a person who has been such an avid reader for so many years and following different publishing houses and things like that, Black authors do not get the marketing
Oh
that
no,
other authors get. They
no.
do not get the same support, the same budget, X, Y, and Z.
Mm-mm.
And so there'll be many times where you guys will put out books and we may not even know about it. We may not see it
Mm-hmm.
in the bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
We hear word of mouth. We may just be like myself, just happen to be scrolling one day
Mm-hmm.
on Amazon, and it's like, oh, I didn't see this. What's this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the purpose of doing this is to put a spotlight on that author and say, this person is here, they're doing great work, go support them. So my question is, and you probably already answered it, is what are some of the best ways for your readers, people who love your work, to support you, outside of just purchasing the book, obviously, but what are the ways that actually can help you in what you're trying to do?
Yeah, leaving the ratings and the reviews are so helpful. Now Amazon has it where you don't necessarily have to write a review; you just leave a rating. It's the same.
Okay.
But reaching out, if you have questions or if you want to just say how much you enjoyed it, because like I said, I don't get to read all of those. I won't read all of those reviews.
Right.
But reaching out and letting me know, how you feel about it is important. But then, like you doing, just sharing,
Yes.
reposting the things
Yes.
that we post. Talk about it, leave a short video and say, y'all really enjoyed this, because word of
Yes.
mouth goes so far.
It
Like
does.
sometimes when I'm sitting and I'm scrolling through like TikTok or whatever, sometimes the reason why you hear about the same authors and the same stories is
Hmm.
because the person that's repost heard somebody else talk about it.
That's
Right?
right.
It's not original content. And so if
Right.
we get more people talking about us and what we do, and not just through the traditional published lens, but those of us that are independently published,
Right.
then it goes so far. It really does. But ultimately, just reading the stories is so
Yeah.
much support, and I
Oh yeah.
love that so much. It just seeing people downloading it, purchasing it, all of
Yes.
that just brings me so much joy. So that's how you can
Yes.
support.
All right. Well, I hope you guys absorb that, took that in. Those are easy ways to support, by the way. It won't take much from you to, hey, drop a line, you put some stars, or just tell somebody, like,
Tell
hey, I
somebody.
just read this, and this is nothing like you've ever read before. You need to pick it up. Those are easy ways to support. And like I said, especially for people in our community
Yeah.
that do not get that sort of support that you see, um, for white
Yeah.
authors, just to
Yeah.
be frank,
Yeah.
when you get the J.K. Rowlings and the Freedom McFadden's and all these different types of people, and they have great work, not to say that they don't, but for us, we don't get it on that level. So we got to do what we can do amongst ourselves to make sure that we run those numbers up. Go get those books, download them, whatever you want to do, whatever form you want it in. Go get the book.
Yes.
But yeah, I definitely wanted to put that out there and remind you guys, like I said, 7 days, 7 nights. It's out. It's on Amazon. Go get it.
Yes.
You can get it paperback. You can get it on the Kindle. It's available. You will love it. And all the other books. Don't stop there. Go through the whole Bailey West catalog. Yes. You will not regret it. Yes. You will be a fan like me. I promise you. Go get it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. And if you're looking for me, you can find me at bailey-west.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram sometimes. I got some stuff on TikTok. So come reach out to me, find me, read the stories, and let me know what you think.
Absolutely. That is great. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to have you tonight.
It was a great conversation. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You enjoy the rest of your holiday. Happy New Year, and continue blessings on everything that you're doing. And hopefully I can speak with you again in the future.
Yes, we should. Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Good night.